I think it's really interesting that what people are trying to find to give meaning, or that is the meaning in their lives since the pandemic started. I mean, I think it was really an opportunity for everyone to sit down with literally nothing else to do and confront themselves and ask themselves why I'm in this job I hate. I don't get enough money for this
I think there's
shit.
been a lot of that,
There's
consideration of, am I really happy in this job? A lot of people have not gone back to their jobs.
Yeah, there are a lot of jobs that just are not being filled because people moved on. They realized they didn't have to be doing that for $10 an hour.
That's a step towards a self-aware, search for meaning.
This time on the Plutopia podcast, John, Scoop, and Suzy search for meaning. We explore the Goldwater Rule, a world based on lies, Viktor Frankl, Q-Anon and lie-based causes, Alex Jones, capitalism, and Christian Nationalists.
Hey, have y'all ever heard of the Goldwater Rule, speaking of insanity?
Goldwater Rule. Well,
I didn't know
Goldwater, and he was
rules.
insane, but...
Well, exactly. And what happened was that a group of like 200 psychologists and psychiatrists in America penned a letter, very much like happened with Trump, that said he's crazy. There's something real wrong with him. And so a court case happened, and there's something now called the Goldwater Rule, which says that if you've not actually spent time with someone examining them, you cannot form an opinion of their mental state if you're a psychiatrist.
Well, we can't form an opinion.
We're not psychiatrists, but I mean,
God.
but what was interesting is that they did, in fact, have people do that with Trump.
Yeah, once upon a time, I lived next door to a psychotherapist, and all of her blocks did not fit into the round holes and vice versa. And she ended up being burglarized by her crazier patients who thought she was nuts and wouldn't know the difference.
Oh my gosh. See? That can happen. Anybody can get a job doing something. I mean, anybody can be a lawyer, anybody can be a psycho.
Watch out for consultants.
Oh yeah, definitely anybody can be a psycho.
I plead guilty on that one.
Okay, I'm going to read to you from letters from an American. This is Heather Cox Richardson, who is a historian, a fairly well-known and accomplished historian that writes something every day. She's got a newsletter, Substack newsletter, Letters from an American, where she writes every day about kind of what happened that day. She's writing history as it happens. And this is from yesterday's newsletter. She says, the construction of a world based on lies is a key component of authoritarians' takeover of democratic societies. George Orwell's 1984 explored a world in which those in power use language to replace reality, shaping the past and people's daily experiences to cement their control. They are constantly reconstructing the past to justify their actions in the present. In Orwell's dystopian fantasy, Winston Smith's job is to rewrite history for the Ministry of Truth, to reflect the changing interests of a mysterious cult leader, Big Brother, who wants power for its own sake and enforces loyalty through the party's propaganda and destruction of those who do not conform. Political philosopher Hannah Arendt went further, saying that the lies of an authoritarian were designed not to persuade people, but to organize them into a mass movement. Followers would, quote, believe everything and nothing, Arendt wrote, think that everything was possible and that nothing was true. The ideal subject for such a dictator, Arendt wrote, was not those who were committed to an ideology, but rather people, quote, people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction and the distinction between true and false no longer exists. Now, doesn't that sound timely. Anybody still there?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh,
yes. Yes. No, it's, I mean, I love Hannah Arendt, and she's, but yes, that seems very timely. And I think that, fascism is always it's always going to be the same. So all of these quotes that are from back then are going to be made by somebody else too, in a different way.
well, but it's exactly what we're seeing right now. And
exactly.
we said that we were going to talk about meaning tonight and sense making. And it's hard. It's very hard to determine what's real and what's not when the air is full of lies.
Well, that doesn't mean, though, that there's no meaning. Meaning doesn't have to be reality.
Well, the truth is what it is, I mean.
Right. No, I understand that, but I don't think the two are at odds or, with each other. Does that make
Which two?
The truth and
meaning?
And yeah, I think that it doesn't have to, that the two things are not necessarily at odds with one another. I think that, for example, what was that movie that they did with the kid who was in the Holocaust with his father, and his father made him believe that it was a movie? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I missed that one.
Okay.
I think my dad did that with me.
Well, okay. Also, from Viktor Frankl, he found meaning in things that were not real, i.e., that his wife was there with him all the time, and that he would get out and he would see her. Now that's just hope. That was his meaning, and it turned out to be false, but she wasn't even alive anymore. Does that make sense?
Interestingly, when I was a teenager, I guess as a senior in high school, and I came to school drunk one day and got progressively drunker while I was actually drinking while I was at school. And I got in trouble and I got put in detention. And my sentence was that I had to spend a week in detention. And in that week, I had to read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
One of the best books I've ever read in my life.
And it was based on his experiences in a concentration camp, a Nazi concentration camp. And he wrote it quickly, about his experiences there, I guess.
Well, it was basically, he had a manuscript he had already written, and when he got captured, they took it from him. And one of the other things that he made himself look forward to was that he was going to rewrite that manuscript. He wasn't just going to give it up. He was going to go and rewrite it. And so it was constantly in his head, right? And then he started to realize how you could tell when somebody had given up. They smoked their last cigarette instead of trying to trade it for food.
Yeah.
They wouldn't get out of bed, that sort of thing. And they were perfectly, not perfectly, but they were healthy enough to get out of bed, but they wouldn't do it. And he said, once you saw that light go out, it was very rare that it would come back. They had just decided that that was their fate. And that's because their life had lost any hope, any meaning. I don't know if the two are interchangeable. I don't think they are.
Well, I think the significance of it too was that what he found was that as long as your life had meaning, as long as you could identify a purpose in life that you could feel positive about, then you felt a possibility, like a trajectory forward.
You felt useful.
Yeah, you felt that you could get through day to day.
Yeah, I've encountered people a few times that were in that situation where they basically had just resigned themselves to non-existence. their lives had apparently fallen apart. Their health was falling apart, and and when they give up, you can see it in their faces, and it's horrifying to watch that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is. And there were a lot of folks who talked about, the meaning of life and what the purpose was, Nietzsche and Jung and these guys. But I think, I think Nietzsche thought that life, that the meaning of life was to suffer. I think he was really kind of a masochist. But the way Frankl, when I learned about Frankl, I was in France, I was in Paris, and I was just devouring any book I could get in English, quite frankly. And the people I worked for actually knew him. They lived next door to him when the mother had been growing up. And so I read the book and I was just astounded. I had never heard of him. I came from a very small town in Texas. I know you guys did too. I had never been exposed to him before, and I so wish I had been before that, but I'm grateful that I was, because it really did teach me to look at things differently. Like, everyone has to have a purpose. You have to have some kind of purpose, and sometimes you create it and it isn't real, but as long as it keeps you going, right?
Well, that's it, and that's a good point there. We see people creating meaning that has a kind of absurdity for some of us who see it. I mean, QAnon being an example. QAnon is a way to make meaning, to make sense of things. And it sounds pretty crazy to me, and I'm sure it sounds crazy to you.
Mm-hmm.
But for the people who are co-creating that QAnon mythology, it is something that they can kind of hang their lives on,
Sometimes people need to hang on to something, no matter how ridiculous and even self-destructive it might be. That today, there are so many people that are just rootless and have nothing to believe in, and someone gives them something like QAnon to believe, they'll just jump right in. It's kind of like someone threw them a life preserver. Of course, maybe a lead life preserver that's going to take them down.
Gives you the illusion of savior.
Yeah, but as far as I experienced something very strange when I was in college, and it was in a history class, and we were studying World War II and basically the Holocaust. And in the middle of the presentation that the professor was giving was really good. I mean, he wasn't smoothing over anything to save anybody's feelings. It was very raw. And there were a couple of people from the University of North Texas, young Republicans were in there. And one of them stood up and started objecting, saying that that hadn't been proven, and they walked out of the classroom. And it was, this was not something that was just, hearsay. It was a documented fact. Mm-hmm. And these people had been told by the young Republicans that it was just a theory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, they may have been murdered, but we don't have any proof.
We don't have proof. Well, Trump just the other day said nobody's gotten to the bottom of 9/11, and Alex Jones is still saying that nothing happened. That the woman, her husband was slow. He called the Buffalo thing a false flag. He even said on the stand yesterday that he and other people are questioning Uvalde.
I think
Alex did he Jones, say that?
Yes,
I thought I thought he was pretty contrite yesterday. One thing he said was 100%. I know that Sandy Hook was real. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Sandy Hook,
reading the words he said, he always had a back out. It didn't say 100%. He believed. It was like reading some of his comments would just, you could just want
Did you
to
see him on
But
the
he did
show?
actually say, I mean, he did
Yes.
actually say 100% at some point that it
And
was
he also
100% real.
said, because they asked him about Sutherland Springs, and because he had called that a false flag. That's what it was, right? Sutherland Springs, Texas, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so he said, well, yeah, we have, all of us, we still had questions about that, just like a bunch of us still have questions about Uvalde, and it's like, whoa, dude, what
Well,
are
I have
you?
questions about Uvalde too, but they aren't questions about whether it happened or not.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, what do you think he means? Who knows what he means? He's, I think, because then he's not stopping. He continued to talk about the buffalo being fake.
But he's not a guy who is out there searching for meaning. He's a guy who's out there searching for dollars.
He's trying to give meaning for money.
I mean, what we have is people who are like leveraging the confusion that's spewing into the infosphere.
Well, yeah,
as a grift, as a way to make money.
I
Donald
think that
Trump is a prime example of that.
I don't think that everyone searches for meaning. I don't think everyone gives a shit about reality and self-awareness and doing the right thing. There are a lot of, just default narcissists just because of lack of probably education, I think.
Well, I mean, that's what meaning is for them. Their meaning is sort of their specialness.
I think it's their unexamined lives, honestly. And I hate to say it, but we all know what an unexamined life is worth. Right?
Yeah, I was just looking at some of the headlines about Alex Jones, and it says Alex Jones is shocked that lies have consequences.
Oh, God, he's just awful. He's just a horrible thumb of. Did you see him almost jump out of his chair at the prosecutor?
Oh, yeah, he was just the pictures I've seen of him. I'm expecting his heart to explode. He must have blood pressure that is 200 over whatever.
You would have thought
this would have fly off.
I've seen some of his shows where I've thought that when the gay frogs show. Holy God, we had veins and it was nuts.
I think that's his default setting. His software was rigged to. That's the only way he could express himself.
I can't believe that there was even a question of him whether or not he could have custody of those kids. So he's just will never shut up. He's always screaming.
Yeah, but this whole shell game he's trying to play with bankruptcy, and
I know.
It's just ridiculous.
So what does that do? I don't even understand that. That's like he's claimed bankruptcy, but he's actually got money. That's what I'm understanding. But
lots of money.
He was making $150,000 to $200,000 a day, a couple of years ago. So it hasn't gone down that much. He is selling supplements. He's selling, cryptocurrency, whatever it is.
Why is he so afraid of being with Trump now? I saw some documentary the other day, and he came out and at the end of it, and he sits down. He said, "Oh my God, I wish I'd never met Trump. I wish I'd never met any of them."
Well, it's he's realizing that he, signed up as a seaman on a sinking ship, and no one's going to throw him a life preserver.
And Donald Trump was on his show, so I'm assuming that that's one of the. How involved do you think he was with 9/11? Because now that was something, Alex Jones. Because I think that was the meaning right there, like you were saying, John, that they gave to these QAnon people. They gave them a purpose, and now it didn't work. So now what?
Well, he's been kind of the father of a lot of the denier causes. There's so many deniers now. It's vaccine deniers, 9/11 deniers,
birthers,
January 6th deniers. You name them, he's got a denier for them.
I wonder if we could sell vitamins.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
I can yell really loud about them. You want me to?
Well, I have this thing about vitamin salespeople anyway. We used to get constant calls. They wanted you to sign up for their vitamin products. And I would tell them, I work for a medical provider. I get them for free. And they say, no, these are better. I said, will you pay me to take them? And they're like, no.
Well, then no.
It's just, the most ridiculous people. And, supplements, some of them are legitimate, but there are a lot out there that are just snake oil. And you see all the great claims, but when you drill down to see whether it's been tested, whether there have been studies, and they're pretty short on those.
That's a fact. In fact, yeah, it's one of the reasons my doctor said he would not ever prescribe marijuana. He said he wasn't against it for pain, etc., but that there aren't any studies on it, and so he wouldn't feel comfortable because he wouldn't know like how much to give someone because there aren't any studies, and I totally get that.
There are lots of studies. I have a friend, Michael Aldrich, Dr. Aldrich, who ran the Fitzhugh Ludlow Memorial Library in San Francisco, and it was a repository of all the literature on marijuana going back to
I'm not
several
saying,
hundred years. And
I
there's
think it's
really
the AMA type thing. No,
well,
I know. I mean, I'm aware. I'm total advocate. Trust me. And I do know about the studies. There's been a Berkeley study, but apparently there haven't been enough. It hasn't been the greatest length of time, and the AMA has not said that this is okay. He's totally pro weed.
Well,
don't get me wrong.
The problem with the AMA is a lot of the people there have a vested interest in keeping the money going to the pharmaceutical companies. I mean, that's where a lot of doctors get their income, is from being a good prescriber of pharma's, latest and greatest.
Well, see, now when you try, so you've got, I don't know where alcohol falls in the drug categories. I mean, is it like a category 1 drug? Is it not on the list at all?
I don't think it's not a controlled substance.
I
guess it is controlled in a sense.
Yeah,
I'm controlling it right now, in fact.
But I mean, and it is a drug. It's addictive. It can be used medicinally, right? So if this is the case, then we would just we're going to have to either say that this particular stuff is medicinal. I don't know. How do you have something that's medicinal and recreational?
Well, I'm going to do the NRA plea, and you can take away my wine when you pull the corkscrew from my cold, dead fingers.
Alcohol is a controlled substance, but is not classified as a Schedule I drug. This means that it has some potential for abuse, but it is not considered to be as dangerous as other controlled substances.
Like marijuana?
Well, marijuana is,
it's on the drug. It's on the drug schedule.
A redemption here, though. If you're in Russia, you should not take your marijuana with you.
That's a big one.
You're going there.
Stupid person for doing that. What a stupid fucking thing to do. I'm sorry, but that was just, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, anybody that has been in the marijuana culture for any amount of time knows the risks. I mean, back in the day, I had all these friends that would go to Mexico and try to buy weed. And then I didn't hear from them for years and years.
Yeah, right. It's like going. I mean, it's not that different from going to Indonesia or something. I mean, except for in Indonesia, they will kill you.
In the Philippines, they will kill you for basically no reason, but they can blame it on, he's a drug dealer, shoot him.
I can't believe she did it. That was just so stupid. And
you mean you can't believe that she carried it with her? Well, she said that she didn't realize she had it.
no, you go to Russia, you double check. Come on, give me a
think so.
break. Or triple or quadruple.
Anytime you leave the United States, you'd have to go through all your belongings and make sure you're not in violation of any kind of rules wherever you're going.
So what did she have? How much did she have?
I don't know.
Just a little bit of a THC vape capsule.
The problem is, though, and I found this out because I do a lot of cannibalism activism.
Cannibalism.
I
didn't know that about you.
That's cannabis activism, cannibalism. The vape, the actual liquids and oils are an immediate felony, even here, because they're concentrated.
Liquids and oils.
So like a vaping juice or an oil that you would get to like a dab or something like that.
How about edibles?
You
can actually buy Delta 9 edibles.
I actually don't know anything about edibles. I just know, but I mean, if she had been smart, she would have taken fucking edibles, but she didn't. She took something that is concentrated, and therefore in Texas, I know it jumps you up to a felony. So I mean, you go to, God, even going to like a friendly country, a marijuana friendly country, I would never, ever get on an airplane with drugs. What the fuck?
Yeah, talk about marijuana friendly countries. The Netherlands used to be just wide open. You go to Amsterdam or Rotterdam, and there were all the cafes, but they have kind of pushed back on that because it just got out of control. They got the marijuana tourism going on to where it was just like people just totally screwed up from having way too much, wandering the streets and getting into trouble.
Well,
and
they also
were all
have
tourists and the locals who just wanted to come in and smoke a little and have some coffee in their local cafe were being driven out by all the weirdo American tourists who were coming in to get high in the Netherlands
and do American things like leave their trash on the ground
and be abusive to the locals.
It'd be really loud. And dress in the same velour track suits. That's what I saw when I lived over there. They all dressed alike.
Are we going to talk about sense making?
Well, that didn't make any sense.
How do you make sense of things?
Is there a factory with it?
Well, like, how do you make sense of that woman taking her damn... Well, again, back to, I think it's really interesting that what people are trying to find to give meaning, or that is the meaning in their lives since the pandemic started. I mean, I think that was really an opportunity for everyone to sit down with literally nothing else to do and confront themselves and ask themselves why I'm in this job I hate. I don't get enough money for this.
I think there's been a lot of that, there's consideration of, am I really happy in this job? A lot of people have not gone back to their jobs.
Yeah, there are a lot of jobs that just are not being filled because people moved on. They realized they didn't have to be doing that for $10 an hour.
That's a step towards a self-aware, like, search for meaning. Like, I'm being almost like a realization that I have been stopped from being creative. My creativity's been tamped down because where I work, I just don't have, all I do is go to work to feed myself. There is no meaning. And so this
people found meaning, and it helped generate a new kind of activism in the workplace of people saying, this is ridiculous. You're a multi-billion-dollar company and you're paying chicken shit wages to people who are making you rich. So it's time for you to cough up some of that, and you see these companies that suddenly go, they're paying $15 an hour, which is still chicken shit wages.
We had
but
to
it's
shame them.
it's a move in the right directions, and it wouldn't have happened if that people didn't have that revelation of having been locked down and out of work and realizing that there's something else out there besides work, making burgers for chump change.
So do you think that people are questioning whether they are really committed to capitalism?
I don't think that consciously a lot of them are. I think that there are obviously a certain degree who are, but I think there are a lot of others who are thinking just, I don't think they're not making that connection that it's a capitalist thing.
Yeah, a lot of people, most people, in fact, probably can't even spell capitalism.
Or understand it. Yeah,
right.
It's not well understood. That's for sure.
You don't learn that in school. You don't learn about the difference of a capitalist society or a socialist society. Yeah. All you have to do is say socialism, and they go, "Oh, it's a bunch of communists." Like, no.
Yeah, and I know people. I've known people who have said really stupid things like capitalism is a form of government. I mean, they're just too. It's too. They don't get it. They don't know. There's also the problem of people. You say socialists, and they run, like you said, Scoop. They freak out. But then they don't know the difference between socialists and Marxism or communism. They could not, there's no way they could tell you. And I know Marxism and socialism are very alike, but communism, socialism and fascism, those are three very different things, which is why they have three different names.
Yeah, I know that under Marxism, if you say the secret words, you get $100.
No, yeah, oh, that Marx, right? All hell Marx and Lenin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, capitalism it's not a form of government, it's an economic system, right? And it's about private ownership of the means of production and operating for profit.
But there are a lot of people who don't, and I know these people, but who don't understand that socialism can operate with a capitalist form of financial, what is the word I'm looking for? Machination.
Well, I mean, a different way to think about it is it's actually possible to have a hybrid economy where some things are operated as capitalist, and you also have socialism, some forms of socialization, thinking of like the fact that government's building roads, that would be kind of an example of a social good that is provided by government, and you might think of that as a kind of socialist enterprise. It's not something that is operated for profit. There are roads that are operated for profit, but most are not.
The ones that
right?
China owns. Yeah.
Or Spain.
That's right.
Spanish companies own the ones here. I knew that was coming.
I just had to bring that up since I had it on my desktop.
All righty.
Oh, that's funny. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if,
but capitalism works as long as the greed factor is not excessive. That's the way I've always felt about it. I mean, I think capitalism is not I think it's a form of economic framework that really does work. But it works best if it benefits all. And if if there's not this level of greed
in the real world.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way the U.S. was for a while, there was a fairer distribution of wealth, and there was a thriving middle class. That's kind of vanishing now, and much of the money is filtering up to what we refer to as the top 1%. To use the Occupy label for those people.
Well, it's kind of like an analogy to the effect addictive drugs have on people. Once you get that the riches coming in, you get addicted, and it's kind of hard to kick that addiction of I'm getting rich. I should get richer, and I should keep on getting richer and screw the rest of the world.
I guess I kind of don't understand the way that thing works. I mean, I guess that you would almost have to be there to understand it. I wouldn't mind sitting down with a Jeff Bezos type at some point. I missed my opportunity to do that. I was at a conference where he was around and hanging out many years ago, and I kind of wish I had more of a conversation with him because he is, he's like insanely rich. Elon Musk is a pretty wealthy guy. I think they all. I don't think there's a consistent way that wealthy people think about their position and their wealth. And you certainly have some people who are wealthy who commit themselves to giving away a lot of their money. Bill Gates is a good example of that,
And that's generally toward the end of their lives, it seems like, because
I don't know. I mean, some people do it earlier on.
Really young folk who are really rich, they're going, I'm just going to give it up and live in the ghetto. That's not going to happen.
Well, I don't think they do that, but when you get to the point where you have many, many multiples of the amount of money that you need to live the kind of life you want to live, why not start giving it away? I think one of the challenges of giving it away is giving it away in a way that it doesn't go to waste. If you're not careful about how you give it away, then it could be wasted.
You would expect all these leaders of the mega churches to be giving it away, but it seemed like all they're giving it to is people who are going to sell them a new mansion, some new limos, a new yacht, a new private plane, and kind of it's at odds with what the whole religion thing was supposed to be about.
Which was another thing about meaning.
Didn't somebody have an issue with money lenders at one time?
Oh, yeah, it was some. What was his name?
They don't teach that in the church anymore because
no, they're too busy telling you to
throw
vote for
me out.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it depends on the church, but I do. I've actually read some things recently where fairly devout Christians are taking issue with the sort of corruption of Christianity that we see in some churches.
Man, it's
bad.
That
just happened with
but it's not universal.
They cleaned house to get rid of the people that were, covering up all the sexual abuse by Baptist ministers, the Baptist lay people.
So did what's his name go? The son of Graham, or not Graham, the other one. Yeah, Franklin. Did he go?
Oh, he's still around running his university, but the Southern Baptist Convention, had a convention just recently, and it was a real eye-opening thing for a lot of the people because they'd all been told, we don't have any sexual abuse. We're the Baptists, and then they had all this investigation that revealed there was a lot of stuff that was swept under the carpet, and people who were told it didn't really happen to you. He's a preacher. He wouldn't do that to you. It was that kind of treatment that they got, and it was official policy. Sweep it under the rug because we don't want to make the Baptists look bad.
And why did I miss this? I mean, I know there's a lot going on, but when was this?
I believe this was this past summer, maybe.
I gotta find out
about
this. This is crazy. This is my favorite kind of crazy shit. Is religious.
I'm a failed Baptist, so I encountered all that.
Never was.
I just wonder if you remember this. He was so upset with himself. Whatever happened to him? Jimmy Swaggart. Is he still around?
He is.
I think he is still around.
dead.
No, he's
I think
not. He's 87 years old.
Ooh.
He's still active.
Holy God.
The Jimmy Swaggart telecast.
Man, sometimes I can catch those old Jan and God, I can't remember what his name was, but it's that she looks like Tammy Faye. She has that pink hair. And oh my God, it's so wonderful. And they have these guys that sing in the back and they sing these songs and they praise Jesus. And it's just so tacky. It is beautiful. And all they do is ask for money.
Back to the Southern Baptist Convention, there's a great article that came out in the Texas Tribune June 15th. Look that up. There's a new Texan that's is the head of the Southern Baptist Convention after their big sex scandal was revealed.
Ooh.
So I haven't read through. I've read other articles. I haven't read this one. I didn't realize Texas Tribune did it, but there was a big turnover there in their hierarchy because they were covering up for a long time.
Well, that's why I was wondering about Franklin Graham, because he's got a lot of sex secrets in his closet there.
Does he?
Oh yes.
I didn't know about that.
Yes. Like he and his wife had a full-on affair for 2 years with the pool boy. Pictures and everything.
Pool boy. They have a pool boy?
They did. I don't know if they do anymore.
Good Lord, a three-way at the Franklin.
Can you imagine?
At the Graham house.
No.
Are you sure it was him? I'm trying to find something on that.
Yeah, I'm
Let's
pretty
see. Let's see. Something about Islam, something about two salaries, support of the Iraq War, Barack Obama. There's a bunch of skeletons here in his Wikipedia closet, but they don't say anything about a sexual thing. I wonder. They just missed it.
Let's see. Pool boy. I'm just going to put pool boy. The pool boy at the heart of the evangelical scandal. It was Falwell. Is that the right one? Is that who we're thinking of?
Falwell, yeah. Okay. You were just
Falwell.
thinking about different guys. Falwell's son, Jerry Falwell Jr.
Jerry. There we go. Sorry, wrong guy. The same thing.
Yeah, I was just reading this new guy that's heading the Southern Baptist. He was opposed by a guy that was backed by the Conservative Baptist Network. It says it adopted its "Change the Direction" slogan against supposed liberal drift in the conservative evangelical denomination. So apparently the new guy wasn't part of the conservative network, but that's the sort of thing it's been. I mean, it was an actual takeover of the Baptist church back in the 70s by the Republican Party and the ultra conservatives, and basically drove anyone out that was a liberal Christian.
I kind of blame the Baptists for the evangelical movement.
Oh, absolutely. Because a lot of them are Baptists.
I mean, they're handling snakes and all kinds of crap.
Oh, now those folks, they're more of the carnival side.
They are charismatic. Charismatic, I think, is what they call themselves, right?
Speaking in tongues.
Yes. I actually had a friend who turned to the tongue speaking church.
Don't they get a little tongue-tied when they do that?
I don't know.
I don't understand speaking in tongues. Are they actually speaking in some language?
They will like to tell you that they are, but I mean, it's really just them flopping on the floor and going, and sometimes.
Well, I had friends who did that, but they had way too many mushrooms, and
yeah, exactly.
they were speaking in tongues, but it was just
the experiences I've had with it, and I have had some because of this friend. It seems very fake to me. But whether or not maybe they're just wanting so desperately to be touched in that way that they fake it, because it does really happen to other people. I don't know. I'm not saying it's not a real thing. I'm just saying the stuff that I've seen is doesn't seem legitimate.
Well, there was one in East Texas who he was apparently the real thing, and he died of snake bite.
Oh, I remember
He
that
was bitten
guy.
one time too many. It's like you can only do that a certain number of times before your check is cashed and you leave.
You know, Benny Hinn is back,
Who?
apparently. Benny Hinn.
Him?
Oh,
Yeah.
the preacher
The
guy.
preacher guy. He got in some serious trouble. I don't know if he ended up going to jail or not, but I just heard the other day that he's coming back on the air or something. Anyway, he was friends with those people I was just talking
Tufik.
about.
Tufik Benedictus Hen.
Okay. Whoa.
Benedictus. Oh, Benny. He's the guy who would go up to people and put his hand on their heads and like really throw them, and people would have to catch him. It would be old ladies,
Yeah.
little children, just hand on your head and just throw them down or hit them even.
It's called the anointing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, they were doing a lot of. There were a lot of sects that were doing the faith healing, and a lot of them got busted because they had. It was basically the
He
carnival.
got busted.
Yeah, they had some shills that would come in. I can't walk, and then they'd lay their hands on. Oh God, I can dance
That was
now.
him. That was him. He did that. Yeah, he was one of those. But he had like a zillion people who were watching him all over the world. And he would go to those things. Yeah, he was totally snake oil. It was crazy. And I think he's Indian, maybe.
Who? Benny Hinn?
I want to
No,
say
he's
Indian.
he's from Israel, I think.
Oh, is he?
He's from Israel. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And he works miracles.
Yes, he does.
Well, I love the get rich quick mega church guys. There's a few of those around.
Joel Osteen.
Yeah. It's like you're going to
Man,
get wealthy.
that
God's
guy.
going to give you a cryptocurrency.
Because that's all God is concerned about, is how well off you are.
Yeah, and those guys definitely don't teach about the money changers being
No, they
ejected
teach
from the
about,
temple.
yeah, they've got money. And speaking of the temple, they've got money actually in the walls at the temple.
Oh, that's right. The bathroom had a wall that had money built into it from
Yeah,
somebody that was skimming off the church.
it's just insanity. I don't understand. Yeah, those are horrible people. I don't know what they're, again, though, I guess, I mean, for some people, winning all the toys is the meaning of life, their meaning, their purpose.
Yeah,
I kind of don't think that Joel Osteen is a grifter to the extent that some of the other people we've been talking about seem to be. I mean, I think he's pretty straightforward in what he's doing there.
during the hurricane in Houston, he didn't want any of those homeless folks coming in and being in his church, even though he had a big, huge church that was spared. And he caught a lot of flack for that.
Well, he preaches prosperity, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
pretty much.
you
He's
would
not
think
lying.
he would want to help out these people. That's supposedly the Christian way.
Well, but
He
the
didn't want those
people
dirty
who
folk
go
in
to
his church.
the people who go to his church are not the people who were going to be in there during that storm. The people who go to his church have way more money than having to end up going to his church to get out of a storm, so that's why he didn't want them in there. But I also heard, and this could be true, and I don't know, that it did flood the first floor, and so that's how he got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
He said that it's been damaged or whatever. Still, I mean, it was kind of an emergency situation.
Well, I have a low opinion of those folks, but the local, grassroots churches, I have nothing against those folks.
Right.
These are people who, they believe and they're practicing their religion, and they're not out to, scam anyone. They're not promising anything they can't deliver.
You don't exit through the
And
gift
that's
shop.
perfectly fine with me. It's just the snake oil salesmen and the ones that are
Grifters.
grifting.
Mm-hmm.
They say they're trying to save your soul, but they really just want you to join the Republican Party. It's what's happened with a lot of these people.
And now they get to say that. And they're still not taxed, but they get to say whatever they want in church. They can tell people who to vote for now, and they're still not being taxed. I mean, how
Well,
does
there's that connection between the evangelical Christians and the Republicans. The Republicans, I mean, it's like a pact that they made, sort of. And I'm sure you recall I told you that some Christians that I know said that they support Donald Trump because Donald Trump had promised to protect Christians, and Christians sometimes feel persecuted, and they feel that they
sure
that they're being like phased out in this country, which may be accurate. I mean, I think
I don't know if it's phased out so much as it's just an evolution.
Well, I think there's just more and more people who don't consider themselves Christians.
Right.
Well, the whole Christian nationalist thing.
Whoa.
And that gets back to, political meaning. There is there is a belief within that set of people that the United States, while it may be tolerant of other religions, should be run by Christians. It is a Christian nation.
It's a Christian
They don't want to be tolerant of anything but their people. From the people I hear spouting about, being a Christian nationalist.
Well, and then
they want to get rid of those Buddhists, those Catholics, and those Jews, and anybody else that isn't falling in line.
And then Alito, when he came out and said that there was this hostility towards religion, I'm thinking that was part of his defense of this abortion thing. And I'm thinking, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. Christians are like the top of the goddamn food chain in this country. That they love to throw it out there, whether or not it's to be revered and admired or if it's to be pitied.
Interestingly, one of the leaders of globally of Christian nationalist movements is Vladimir Putin.
Oh, gee, now there's a surprise.
That is fucking awesome to know. That's beautiful.
He is.
I mean, that's a total KGB power play there. You infiltrate a bunch of gullible folks and feed them a conspiracy theory, and
I thought they were all secular.
Cause.
I thought that was the whole point of the communists in Russia, is that they were secular.
Well, that's communist, but there's no communists in Russia anymore. There's just like the Russian mafia and the people who work for him, I guess.
I don't think he was a devoted communist. He was a communist because that was the flavor of the month when before they.
He's really apart. More fascist.
And as soon as the tide changed to capitalism, then he jumped right on board with all the oligarchs and that power structure.
Even the communists weren't communists.
That's true. It was just another name that they ascribed. It's so bizarre, and it's no wonder people don't know, what the difference is. People just use them interchangeably.
Yeah. People think that Stalin was a communist, and he was a Stalinist. That was his religion.
Whole thing,
and it had nothing to do with Marx and Lenin.
Not a damn thing. He was his own man.
And all the people that came after him, they were just trying to keep the game running as long as they could, because the economy there was so horrifyingly bad, and
isn't it now
their
too?
Military was falling apart. I mean,
I would think that would be the same situation for them right now. I mean, they've got their military is not great. And their economy is ridiculous.
They're experiencing the same thing we have with our oligarchs. We have them here, they have them there, and they're sucking up all of the wealth and power, and everyone else is left to split up what's left.
Oh God! Well, I hope that people are able to, maybe use this time, because we still are, there are a lot of us still working from home, which does allow us a little extra time. We don't have to do the commute and all this kind of stuff. Maybe to have that time, to ruminate and find, just what's going on and what makes me happy and what is the meaning, what is my meaning, and do I
What
have
is the meaning of life?
well, pretty of my life, yeah, that sort of thing. And is it a communal thing? Is it, or is it objective or is it subjective?
I,
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm not sure I understand what's going on in the world anymore.
Yeah, I try not to understand. It just scares the shit out of me. So
I guess. I
I
mean,
try to understand what's happening in my life.
Yeah, right.
there is a truth, and there is reality, and you can throw up all kinds of fog and smoke and mirrors and so forth, but what's real is real. One thing that's real that is unfortunately probably going to do us in is the the problem of climate change.
Yeah, we're in the middle of that right now.
And we're not, there's no, I say we as a race, the human race is not doing a very good job of mitigating the problem of climate change and correcting its own actions that are contributing to climate change. And because of that, it's really hot outside and getting hotter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
and it's really wet outside in some places and getting deeper. And I mean, un, unbelievable, rainfall, in parts of the country, and unbelievable drought in others. And it wasn't like that before, but now it is.
yeah, how come it's not wet here?
Right. Well, that's kind of always been an issue.
Yeah,
Where's my rainfall? I want a rainfall.
I want some rain. That'd be great, but no, not.
yeah. The problem with the whole climate change issue is everyone, well, not everyone, a lot of people agree that it exists, but they don't really want to take the time to do their part to, to
No.
help out. And especially
Even
the big corporations, they don't want to lose money because they're doing something. They have to go and do something that's good for the climate and bad for business.
But even the people who are upset about climate change and profess to be committed to some kind of fix are they are not. They're not dealing with it.
No.
I
No, they're
mean,
not.
they're not, because the way that our lives are set up now, the way that we have to live now, live now, um, you just can't live the life that um, a typical human being wants to live without making significant sacrifices if you want to address climate change. I mean, you have to sacrifice components of your lifestyle. We could do that. We could have a pretty good life, but it would be really different. So, can we make those changes? Who will make those changes? Who is willing to make those changes?
I always felt like it was sort of a grasshopper and the ant kind of thing. You know, like
Mhm.
the Republicans are sort of like, we're gonna die anyway. So might as well, spend all this money and make all this money to spend it on all this other shit, and before we go out. And the Democrats are going, if we could do this and this and this, we might be able to hang on a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
not a
just
lot of
don't.
people going to go, full tilt for let's just do what it takes. All of us, and that's not going to happen,
I mean, look
unfortunately,
at the
because
power grid in Texas. Talk about grasshopper and ant. Come on. We had time to get this thing fixed. Now we're talking about rolling brownouts because we're going into what, our 80th day of 100 degrees or some shit.
Well, the one thing of sunshine that I saw in the news was the election in Kansas.
Yes.
That was a big surprise, and I'm sure there are some serious meetings going on in Republican campaign offices around the country.
I hope they do this with they have an election in every state.
Mm-hmm. But the pro-choice people won by 20% in a state that is the home of the anti-abortion movement. That's where it started.
Yep, badass, so badass.
So let's just hope that we'll see more of that kind of good voting.
Let's end on that very, very positive note.
Yep.
Well, are we going to end, or are we just going to keep going?
Well, I think we've beaten this dog to death. Let that poor dog go.
Indeed, we have.
Thank you, folks. That was a fun conversation.
It was indeed.
Goodbye.
Next time. See you next week. Off we go.
You can follow the Plutopia News Network at plutopia.io. On Facebook, go to @Plutopia News. On Twitter, it's @Plutopia. With John Lebkowski, I'm Scoop Sweeney. This is the Plutopia News Network, 20 minutes into the future.